Welcome to We Are Venomaniacs, the Venom site's official podcast for all of your symbiote news, reviews, and point of views. In this podcast series, a few of the fan club's esteemed and brave members take to the airwaves to discuss symbiote-related comics, movies, cartoons, games, and more. We also provide new updates on fresh media and merch, all, of course, about symbiotes all the time. Every so often, we will go deep into the canon and mythology of symbiotes in comics. Have you ever wondered why the symbiotes are weak against fire and sonics? Or how all these seemingly conflicting interpretations of symbiote culture or history all fit together? Who is actually the strongest spawn of the Venom symbiote? We'll get to all of that and more in due time. For now, let's get you up to speed. What is the Venom site? The Venom site, or TVS, as you'll sometimes hear us call it, is the internet's premier and officially/unofficially recognized fan club for all things symbiotes. If you like Venom, Carnage, or any other countless symbiote characters, the Venom site is your central hub to connect and geek out with fellow fans and get the latest news on symbiote merch and media. What is a Venomaniac? You are, if you like anything symbiote. Venomaniac is a fan-made nickname for symbiote fans, originating straight from the Venom site's own community. Let's start off with a few introductions. First up, we have Carlos, Twitter handle BlackFlameF50, returning for another episode. Welcome back, Carlos.
Thanks for having me again.
Next up, we have John, Twitter handle VenomKnight_, also making a return. Hey, John.
Hey everyone, happy to be here.
In this episode, we're joined by Tyler, Twitter handle @CleachArbiter, also known as SymbioBro, one of TVS's most outspoken Venomaniacs. Welcome to the podcast, Tyler.
No, I'm glad to be here. Glad to be on.
Kalish, as has become customary with each new addition to our podcast, we'd like to know a bit more about you as a Venomaniac, so if you can, please answer a few questions for us, if you don't mind.
All right.
How long have you been with TVS?
I haven't honestly been with the site too long. I saw the site like just sort of here and there, just from when I was in school and stuff, but I never really paid much mind to it. I wasn't really huge onto like message boards or whatever, and then I only really started to get into it once Space Knight started coming out. And I started looking on the side like, okay, these are a bunch of big fans. Like, this is where I get news for Venom like a lot. And then I actually started commenting once the new Venom series came out. Like, I'm going to be a part of this community. And so I just thought I'd get into that. And, here I am now.
Thank you. And how were you introduced to Venom and symbiotes?
I, like some of the other people on the podcast, was first introduced through the 90s cartoon Spider-Man. So, and I just fell in love with, just Spider-Man in general, but especially Venom. Just, he's so cool, and that show still has one of my favorite incarnations of Eddie Brock. So it's awesome.
Nice. And who is your favorite symbiote or host?
Favorite symbiote, definitely Venom. I mean, how can you not say Venom? But then definitely Agent Venom, specifically Flash Thompson, is my favorite host. Like, I fell in love with him as soon as I liked Flash from, like, he was always sort of like the bully who became the friend. And, I didn't pay him a whole lot of mind, but then the Amazing Spider-Man issue came out. I forget what issue it was. It's 574, I think, where it shows how he lost his legs. And I really gained a lot of respect for him, and it was a very extremely well-written issue. And it made you really like the character. And then, the whole twist came out that he becomes a new Venom, and I wasn't sure how to feel about it at first. I was like, it looks kind of weird, just like military gear. He's like, oh, it's Flash Thompson. And so I didn't actually start, like, it was at a time when I wasn't too into comics. I was still only buying, like, Amazing Spider-Man and Deadpool, but then I started buying Venom when Flash moved to Philly, and that was my first issue of Venom. And I've been buying ever since, and I bought the first 2 trays now of Remder's Run, and so, yeah, absolutely, I'm a giant Flash Thompson fan.
Great. And what is your favorite symbiote comic or story arc?
I gotta go with Carnage USA. Like, it's just so great. It's a short little series. You got Doppelganger, just sitting there in the background, and then you have animal symbiotes. You have Gorilla Venom versus Carnage zoo with the whole zoo, and then you have a cripple fight, and then you have Agent Venom first. Well, Spider-Man first meeting Flash as Agent Venom instead of just normal hulked out Venom, and it's just like, oh my god, the Punisher's dressed up like me, and so it's just, and then that beautiful Clayton Crane art, just gorgeous, and so I love everything about Carnage USA.
Excellent. And finally, if you could bond with any symbiote in the Marvel Universe, which would it be?
See, I thought a lot about this because first instinct is definitely to say Venom, because how can you not say Venom? Because, we all like him and he's sympathetic, or he's been through a lot. But the more you think about it, like, realistically, would I want to? Because he's got a lot of baggage. And he's prone to freaking out. And so I think I honestly got to say Toxin. Just because Toxin is the newborn, I could teach him between right and wrong, just like Pat was doing. And so you get more of a deeper bond since he's newer still.
All right, thank you. Next up, we're joined by one of TVS's well-known personalities and curator of the Amalgamated Symbiosis fan art gallery on Tumblr, Aaron, Twitter handle @Bizarnage. Welcome to the podcast, Aaron.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here after I missed the first two, but I'm here to make my grand entrance.
All right. And let's have you answer the same questions. How long have you been with the Venom site?
Oh, man. I've been here for 6 long years. Starting in 2011, I need to find a place to vent my angering frustration at Marvel for just ruining Venom with this whole Agent Venom nonsense. In fact, you can go all the way back to when Agent Venom started, like all the posts on the Venom site, all the comic discussions, and you'll see me writing long paragraph essays about how this is just ruining Venom from its core and how it's abomination to the world of comics. But over a while, after I started talking with people, I joined Twitter, talking with you, Ryan, and other guys. I started to like Flash a little bit more, and I kind of cooled off, and I saw that Flash wasn't the worst thing in the world, and it brought in new fans, as we have already seen. And from that, I've been involved in the site, such as blog posts, making a Venom wiki, and now this podcast, as well as myself searching websites multiple times a day, trying to find new variant covers, new news, just new content for the Venom fans to love and enjoy.
Thank you. And how were you introduced to Venom and symbiotes?
Well, like everyone else, I was introduced to Venom and the symbiote from the 90s Spider-Man animated series. And from there, I just knew Venom as an awesome character. But it didn't really start until 2006 when I saw Superman Returns in theater. I saw that the Spider-Man 3 trailer with the Venom symbiote going over Spider-Man, and I just thought to myself, hey, you know what? Venom was a pretty cool dude. I want to read more about him. And after I saw the movie, years after I saw the movie, I picked up New Ways to Die trade, which reintroduced me to Eddie and where Venom has grown since then. And from there, I started buying trades from old Spider-Man issues, old Venom issues, and I really fell in love with Eddie Brock and his character and how it evolved over years. And then from there, I started continuing to reading more modern Spider-Man comics with Big Time, which introduced Agent Venom a short time later, and here I am now.
It's great that we've all been introduced to Venom through the animated series. I think that's going to be an answer for pretty much anyone who comes on this podcast. And who is your favorite symbiote and host?
Well, if you know me, you already know the answer is Eddie Brock and Venom. From just the look at him, you know what Venom is all about. He's a twisted version of black-suited Spider-Man, and even Eddie's reflection, or even Eddie's character, reflects all of that. He came from a broken family. He's divorced. He was a shamed ex-journalist that used questionable methods to get his big scoop. Then at his lowest point, after all of that was ruined and taken away, he bonded with an alien at its lowest at its lowest point too, and they bonded in this beautiful hatred while also having this high sense of moral duty to protect the innocent with lethal force. And mix that with stories about underground cities, toxic waste monsters infecting them, evil goblins, robotic girls, and then crossovers with Punisher, Ghost Rider, Wolverine, other Spider-Man related people. It was great. I loved it. Loved all the 90s minis. And I even loved how Eddie and the symbiote evolved separate from each other, as Eddie had cancer, he became anti-Venom and Toxin, and now he's back as Venom, which is something we're going to have to talk about a little bit later in this podcast.
Yeah. And then what is your favorite symbiote comic or story arc?
Well, there's a lot of good old Venom that I love that are right by my heart. But honestly, I think the one story comic that just blew me out of the water, that just said, yes, this is what I liked seeing, was Rick Remender's Agent Venom, or Venom number 7. And that was during the Spider Island story arc where he was anti-Venom. And he had his moment in the sun. He was healing people, and he was basically Spider Jesus, just healing all the infected spider people in his famous Our Lady of the Saints Church. Flash comes to confront him, and the two just have it out. Eddie starts preaching to Flash as they're fighting, saying how Venom is awful, how it destroyed his life, how it'll destroy his as well. And Flash actually starts to think that, yeah, Eddie might be right here. And at the very end, he says, "Get off me." And the symbiote goes to Eddie, and it just brings back all the nostalgia. Eddie Venom is back for maybe about one page until it goes back to Flash. That whole issue was blown out of the water. The fight scenes, the dialogue, just everything that happened. I love that whole story, even when I was very much against Agent Venom at that time.
If you could bond to any symbiote in the Marvel Universe, which would it be?
Well, for this question, I'm going to have to get a little bit obscure and say the Payback symbiote. Payback was only in 5 issues, but her whole deal is her symbiote is a variation of the regular symbiotes that feed on bliss instead of hatred. So the symbiote itself is sane, so in your head, it'll still talk to you and you have a little friend in your head. But it's also resistant to fire, sonics, and also has lightning protection, and it even lets you fly. So it's the best of both worlds. You have all these powers and a friend that still talks to you in your head.
Nice. So that's all of our guests for this episode. Welcome to the podcast, everyone. As for myself, my name is Orion. Twitter handle @OrionStarboy. I'm your main host for most, if not all, of the podcast. Let's get started with our discussions. First off, we'd like to let our listeners know that this episode is part 1 in a 2-part podcast extravaganza. In this 2-part series, we will be discussing recent and upcoming developments in symbiote comics. In the next episode, we'll discuss the upcoming Land Before Crime story arc starting in Venom number 151, and the all-new Edge of Venomverse event. Tonight, however, we're discussing the oversized issue of Venom number 150. Last month, the first story arc of the current Venom comic series ended with issue 6. It also marked, hopefully, the last time Venom's newest host, Lee Price, was bonded to the symbiote. Now, unsurprisingly, Lee has received mixed reactions from readers. Some say his time as Venom was cut short and that there was a lot of character development potential. If you've been following our podcast, though, you probably already know that we don't really care much for Lee, so we're not going to dwell on him for too long. What really got us talking, though, is how Costa handled Eddie Brock's characterization and the circumstances of his return as Venom. Let's have a very brief discussion about Venom number 6 and Eddie's return. Let's have you start our brief discussion, Carlos.
Well, as it stands, when I read issue 6 of Venom, I was kind of not surprised how at the end it was all kind of anticlimactic, and also Aaron kind of pointed out, he called it when he said when you see Venom swinging into the night and he's saying that he's back. It was the only pager that we ever had. I was kind of hoping that at least they would have showed us maybe one more page of Eddie and Venom rebonding again. But for me personally, like again, I have nothing. Or I absolutely love the art. It's just that I wish there was just more to it. And but overall, I mean, I'm just glad Eddie's back again. And you know, issue 150 was really great. And you know, it had ups and downs. And yeah, so you know.
Thank you. And anyone else have any last thoughts or anything about Venom number 6?
I mean,
Well-
one thing I wanted to say. Sorry, Aaron. I'll let you get to it
it's
in a
fine.
second. A lot of people have a problem with the symbiote just going like hating Spider-Man again, and I'm actually okay with that because I've always liked the symbiote having this love-hate relationship, and I've heard people say like, "Oh, why is Spider-Man like doing this? He should know Venom's a good guy." See, here's the thing: Spider-Man's always been a douche to the symbiote. Like and he at least admits it this time. He's like, "I'm going to hell for this." Like, so I mean, ever since he learned it was alive, he's been a jerk to the symbiote. So, and now that it's off Flash, and even though it admitted it was a hero and stuff, like, the symbiote could have like just formed into a humanoid and like talk calmly. But I'm pretty sure it was just so desperate to get away from Lee and go to a hero that it decided to crawl on the floor like a friggin' face hugger to get to Spider-Man. But so Spider-Man, and he was a jerk to the symbiote and tried capturing it. And I think the symbiote, like people have said, like, oh, like the symbiote was doing bad things. Like, of course, like Spider-Man would be trying to capture it. Why doesn't the symbiote understand that? Well, the thing is, like the symbiote, in its mind, it is the victim, and in a sense, it is. It was not in control of its actions. Like if you have a telepath who controls you and makes you do bad things, nobody wants you. It's obviously the telepath's problem. And that's was in no control of its actions. So I totally understand why the symbiote hates Spider-Man again, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, and not to mention that, you know, over these past 6 issues, we've been seeing the symbiote mentally and he was devolving the entire time because of his exposure to Lee and Lee's just abuse and evilness. So when it came time for Spider-Man to enact his plan, I don't think the symbiote even had the ability to speak out to Spider-Man as it had before, when, like after the cleansing back in Venom's Space Knight, and Venom could exist on its own and talk to anyone around it. So I think it lost that ability, and definitely it couldn't explain its situation to Spider-Man at all, and of course Spider-Man's going to be a dick to symbiotes no matter what.
So I had some things to say, but that just covered everything. So it makes sense why it hates Spider-Man. Now it wants to be a hero so bad. Spidey is a hero, but he just rejects it after seeing it, you know, destroying hackers, blowing up the FBI. Spider-Man saw it was too bad, and he knew he had to team up with Eddie and just stop it.
Oh, I love that. I loved him still teaming up with Eddie. That Eddie doesn't hate Spider-Man.
He still hates him. Yeah, obviously he still hates him. Like, oh, Eddie Brock. Should have known this guy was involved.
Yeah, but they're not at each other's throats. They're working together to take down. I really like that.
Oh yeah.
And I think too, like I would blame Lee because like after all that crap he put him through, pretty much abusing it, like that was just a starting point since like from issue 1 to 5, pretty much. So.
But he's still alive though.
Yeah.
And I'll say my one big negative for the issue. Like I thought this was better than all the previous issues. Obviously, I haven't liked Lee. I'm glad he was taken away and the symbiote finally beat him. My con is Eddie's position towards the symbiote. Like it's not made clear why he. Like we'll get into this, especially with 150. But
we will.
Yeah, we absolutely will. But like the way, especially the line "my darling," I really don't like that line. It doesn't make sense with Eddie's previous characterization, and it just really upset me that he's just wanting the symbiote back so badly for a reason that's not apparent at all.
Yeah, so I think that's, unless anyone has anything else they want to add about Venom number 6 or anything leading up to it.
If I can say one thing, Orion?
Yeah, not a problem. Go ahead.
Sorry, but I think just my quick, short review of like the first 6 issues is just skip it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Skip it.
Yeah. Nothing significant enough happens.
Nothing good came
the
from it.
symbiote's characterization actually makes less sense with Lee. If you just read the Flash Thompson story in 150, it makes more sense.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
going straight to Eddie or something like that.
Yeah.
Lee did nothing significant to the symbiote. All the side characters are insignificant, like the fire mutant, who was supposedly his neighbor.
I would actually hazard to say that at least one of the side characters introduced might be important down the line, considering Flash Thompson's story in Venom number 150. But
true.
We'll get to that point.
True, but if my friend were to ask me, hey, I want to get into Venom, like the new Venom series, where should I start? I would absolutely tell him just skip the 150.
Yes. All right, so I think that's a good place to pin that conversation, and we're just going to move on to the moment we've all been waiting for. Let's talk about the big one, Venom number 150. This massive beast unofficially marks the beginning of Marvel's upcoming Legacy publishing initiative. Legacy takes a bunch of comics like Ultimate Squared and other yet-to-be-announced ongoing series and renumbering them with Legacy enumeration, which is basically counting up all of the past issues and series from the same title and making them the sum of the new issue number these Marvel Legacy comics will start from. In Venom's case, it got its 150th issue number from adding up various ongoings and limited series like Venom Lethal Protector and the other Venom title books, especially like from the 90s miniseries and Agent Venom's comics. A few liberties were taken, however, in the renumbering, but you can see which comics Marvel used to get to the Milestone Legacy number in the pages of Venom number 150. They have a great collage piece that we all think maybe was inspired by Aaron's collage piece that he made for us. So, what did this first issue have for Venomaniacs? 3 separate stories by 3 different creative teams. First, we have the main story, Heart of Darkness, by Mike Costa, Trad Moore, and Felipe Sobrero, which follows up Venom number 6 and Eddie's first day as Venom once more. Let's summarize the issue. Eddie and the symbiote go out on their first night back together to stop a robbery at a research and development lab. Eddie quickly finds out that his gooey partner is struggling with the concept of heroism, as Venom nearly kills the lowly robbers for no good reason. Eddie and the symbiote then find themselves back at the church, where they first bonded all those years ago back in Amazing Spider-Man number 300. There, Eddie scares off a couple of punks and talks with the church's pastor about his relationship issues, secretly, of course, about the symbiote. The pastor gives Eddie some sound advice, but the symbiote takes offense to his suggestions and has Eddie leave the place. Later, Venom runs into the Scorpion, who's been hunting him down since the whole affair with Lee Price. Scorpion manages to blast the symbiote with a sonic weapon, but just as he's about to kill Eddie, the symbiote disables Scorpion's suit and carries a weakened Eddie away. When Eddie comes to, he finds that the symbiote made him kill the pastor from earlier in the church scene for trying to get between it and Eddie, and that's where the issue ends. There's a lot to unpack from just this story, so let's have our resident Eddie Brock Uber fan, Aaron, start our discussion about Heart of Darkness. Aaron?
Oh boy. I just want to start off saying I was really excited for this book. Eddie being back as Venom is something I've been waiting years for. I've been ranting about it, memeing about it on Twitter, hoping it would happen for years. But I did have my few issues with it. And I also want to say, I think we can all agree that us being diehard Venom fans are hard to please. But we still love that Venom is continuing to be so popular. And I think we'll always support these books. So folks that may be listening, if you're a higher up at Marvel, we love you. Please keep doing Venom books. So where to start? Trad Moore's art was great. his strongest suit is, of course, illustrating action scenes, which were really well done. And the splash page at the start showing Eddie's through his life as he started to become Venom is everything a fanboy like me could ask for. Now, the whole theme of this story was love, and while it's clear that the symbiote still loves Eddie unconditionally, of course, like even when Mac and Flash were bonded to it, it still showed strong emotions for Eddie. And even after Eddie tried to kill it multiple times and even rejected it in the first place, it still has that deep love for him. And it's still addicted to it. But I think we're all still not sure why Eddie even cared for it after all it's done, such as it indirectly killed ex-wife Anne Wang. It gave him cancer and corrupted him into this mass murdering man that now is starting to say that he's calling it my darling and my love. I mean, that really doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But while it's not directly stated, it seems like Costa is saying that this relationship is kind of like how the symbiote treats Spider-Man. Yes, Eddie hates the symbiote for what it did to him back in the past, but in the back of his mind, he might still deeply care for it, and he might still have this love for it. This is like how the symbiote wanted to kill Spider-Man for rejecting it, but again, this isn't spelled out anywhere, I don't think. And I suppose Eddie right now is in a huge slump in his life. He still has no one to talk to depend on. The FBI doesn't trust him, as they said in Venom 6, and everyone in the Marvel Universe seems to still think of him or the villain formerly known as Venom. And on top of that, Eddie has no symbiote anymore. As we already know, he is addicted to having that power. It's spelled out in the Carnage series by Conway, which was great. Everyone said that he's just addicted to the power and can't be trusted. And maybe he sees the Venom symbiote as a way to have both these things. His power back and a relationship with something or someone that still cares for him. And it's the same thing with the Venom symbiote. Eddie comes to rescue it like a knight in shining armor when Flash is gone and Spider-Man rejected again, and it's captured by the FBI, and all of that just sending it over the edge by Stark, and it's being corrupted again. So much so that it probably doesn't even care that Eddie set that whole plan with Spider-Man up. It's just happy to have its old friend Eddie back with it. But I wouldn't say Eddie's character is ruined. He still wants to be a hero and not look stupid, as he says in the book. But right now, he's even questioning if being Venom right now is even good for him, because the symbiote is still talking, whispering in his mind to go murder people, which hurts the symbiote's character. But this is where Venom probably really should always be at, I think. So right now, I'm kind of skeptical about the whole issue. I'm happy that Eddie is back as Venom. I'm not completely sure why he's questioning his faith. It might be because he's unsure where he is with the Venom symbiote's relationship. But I'm a huge Brock fan, so I'm going to keep looking on the bright side that Venom is back and unsure of himself as he ever was. And it might be interesting to see how these two change as time moves on. But Eddie, you have to face it. You're addicted to love, man.
You pretty much helped us encapsulate the entire issue. So let's see. What did people like most about this issue? Let's start with that.
I'll say right now, I definitely have my issues with the comic, but one of my favorite parts was the art. The Tradmore art is just beautiful. He's got a very distinctive style. Like I really haven't seen anything like it, and it's just the way he draws just beautiful. Just the motion.
Yeah, it surprised me because when I first saw the previews for Tradmore's art, I was like, I'm on the fence about this. It looks a bit blocky and everything. But then when you read the entire issue, it's like, holy crap, we need more Tradmore. It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I can see why it might turn some people off, like his perspective and all, but I think it totally works for the comic.
I mean,
the fight scenes look good, but like when it's just like him, like in like the church scene, like we hear where he's just standing there, it does look a little bit off. But the fight scenes in the whole issue are great. Yeah, I agree with that.
I mean, for me, like I agree with about the whole art, but for me personally, the reason why I like it so much more is because it just screams kind of like more towards the 90s era of Venom, how he used to be drawn, and that's what kind of made me look at at that perspective. It kind of looked familiar how it used to be in the mid 90s. And like you said, Aaron, the whole splash page with all the memories of Eddie Brock, the black goo going all over the page, like that was just a great splash page overall. So I really loved that what they did there.
I also want to highlight the panel when the Scorpion first shows up, and Eddie's just, he's puking out the symbiote at all orifices and little blood coming out. I was like, oh man, that's gruesome. That's how I imagine like Cletus Cassidy transforming to Carnage, just bleeding out of every orifice and the blood just going all over his body and becoming the symbiote. That just looks awesome.
Yeah, it's very nasty, but we all love it.
And so we like the art, yes. How about any story choices? Anything about the story that we might like?
I kind of like how Eddie's doubting his relationship with symbiote. It's a new, interesting dynamic. I think obviously you had to sacrifice a lot of his character development over the past few years to get here. But if you just ignore that and take it for how it is, it's a really interesting dynamic that I really like. Eddie Brock, for the first time, I think, is really doubting that this is good for him, inside of the symbiote, right?
Well, I think he back around Venom the Hunger, starting from then and going on, we got to see a lot of doubt with Eddie Brock about his relationship with the symbiote, and that's really nice with this, is that it's an homage to that, where it's great to have what you want, but is it really that great? Is it all you expected it to be, and it's turning out not to be everything you expected? And yeah, like you said, the whole part about the whole thing about him calling it my love or whatever repeatedly is a little disturbing. It's like, it's a bit much calling it, oh, my love, my love, my love. We get it, you love the symbiote. But also the fact that he said he had been waiting to bond with Venom for a long time.
For years.
For years, exactly, for years. It flies in the face of everything that we know about Venom, because all you have to do is look back at Aaron's favorite Venom comic, the Venom number 7, when he was anti-Venom. When he battled with Agent Venom, for a moment the symbiote got back onto Eddie, and we saw him, he was distressed. He was like, I do not want this. He was crying because he didn't want to be with Venom again. So we know that it's like, does he really want the symbiote back? Because that's a little bit difficult to sell after everything he's gone through.
Right. Yeah, that was definitely my biggest issue with the comic. Just like especially that line about dreaming it, because that's blatantly wrong. Like, things can be like strewn this way or that, but that line in itself is just, that's false. That's not true at all. And so, I'll get into some of my other cons later, but yeah, that definitely is one of the big ones. It's like Eddie himself is written well, and I think it's Eddie's voice, but the whole fact that he so quickly falls back in love with the symbiote, and he's like, oh yeah, I've always wanted this. I have a big issue with that.
Right. Yeah. Well, the thing is too is also during the whole Carnage series, when he sacrificed Toxin and whatever happened to Toxin, I don't want to get into that. It's I felt well, since he doesn't have a symbiote anymore, I'm pretty sure now he's gonna have his sights set on Venom, and that's why he kind of was, I need that power again. Maybe that's had something to do with it as well. So he was kind of thirsty to be bonded again in some way.
I mean, we all know he is an addict for power and love because his whole relationship with his father. I'm always touting this that, he has this victim complex. He's always searching for recognition. He's trying to, you know, he doesn't want to be the one to blame for anything that he does. He wants people to love him, and he's addicted to the power because he thinks he can use that power to get what he wants. And so the symbiote does represent that for him, and even though he's rejected the symbiote for all these years, I do see how, like, maybe in the very back of his mind, even though he's so resistant about getting the symbiote back, I think in the back of his mind he really did always want it. He just never really admitted it until now.
Right. A lot of people may not agree with me on this, but I feel like Costa did to Eddie what Bendis did to the symbiote, as far as doing what he wanted with it without any worry for the character beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so Bendis gave a one-page explanation, completely changing the characters of, the symbiotes, and Costa gave one speech, completely changing the character of Eddie Brock for the past 13 years.
Although I'll be the dissenter here, and I'll say that I actually liked what Bendis did, and I have my reasons for it, but I'll agree. Yeah, I mean...
Yeah, like, folks love Space Knight. So, so maybe it's not all bad. I mean, maybe you can flip around and maybe,
I liked the second half of Space Knight.
Great,
Yeah,
right. Well, the analogy goes deeper because I feel like there's a lot of good stuff that came out of Space Knight, like the symbiote being able to speak more freely, like officially, right? Because it could just talk on and off before, but now it officially can just speak. And I feel like a lot of good can come from this, from Venom 150 and on. I think a lot of good can come from it, but you have to swallow a really large pill of getting rid of years and years of character, right? And we have to explain why it works, and not the writers, and that's the most annoying part.
Yeah, just on a surface level, it blatantly feels wrong. Like, yes, you can look into it and like all the intricacies and what he didn't write in between the lines, but
yes,
from
like
a surface,
me, like I said.
Yeah, but the fact that like you could have done it more subtle. Like no one's really ever referenced like Eddie's love for the addiction. Like, show him struggling to get back into this, but instead it's just immediately my love. Like, it's just really weird, and it's a 180. So you have to you can't just show that to us. You have to like write it. Like, it's just
It was disturbing to see. It was disturbing to see him say that the first time. Like, he said, "My darling," in issue number 6 when he first saw the symbiote. There, I was like, okay, this is getting a bit weird. And then in issue number 150, it's "my love" all the time. Like, there was no easing into that. That was a bit jarring.
And then after the robbery scene, he's like already starting to tell himself. I'm like, well, that was
like
fast.
He really
like,
just started bonding. Like,
yeah, and now he's having second thoughts about it. It's like, oh, come on, man,
it's really quick.
The whole thing is rushed. Lee was not supposed to happen. Lee was supposed to last, but then they said, "Oh, Lee isn't looking too good. Folks don't like him. We need this whole, 150, 100 legacy numbering. So kick Lee out of there, get Eddie back on the symbiote, sell thousands upon thousands of dollars of variant covers, get Eddie back. Let's go, people. Let's go."
Yeah. I think the initial plan. I think they were eventually going to bring Eddie in, but not as soon as they did. They actually wanted Lee to last. Yeah, and just he did not work.
And the only thing,
I'm not complaining. Eddie's back, baby.
The only thing else I want to say too about the first part of the story, like for me, I did like the whole fight between Eddie and Scorpion.
Oh yeah.
And just seeing Eddie finally getting his payback after all those years from New Ways to Die, and it's just like I kind of felt like yes, he finally gets his revenge and he just beats the crap out of Scorpion. Because again, like I don't like Scorpion. I definitely didn't like him as Venom back then. So.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh, but the one page I love with that Scorpion fight is when Eddie finally knocks him out and he's falling back into the symbiote, and and fainting, and the symbiote's going to take him away and take him to safety. I really
Yes, holding hands the whole time.
Oh,
Yes,
I love
holding
that
hands.
detail.
Oh, love it. So
Oh.
lovable.
Yeah, and did you guys notice that, like, when he falls completely back into it, it's holding his face as well?
Yeah,
yeah,
that
it's
is,
going into his mouth and whatnot.
that's
It-
great
it-
imagery.
It
Symbolism.
gives. I'm actually. I didn't get to say this earlier. I'm not like a huge fan of his art, but I am a fan of what he did with it. Like you guys said, the blood and the symbiote bonding, and the hand holding and the face holding gives it this appropriately creepy vibe. Like, this isn't like a good relationship. Very
Hand holding, like my love, my darling, all that good 90s.
It's
the
like
hunger
how
stuff.
it's like how the Venom symbiote did the same thing for Peter in Web of Spider-Man #1 when he brought him to safety downstairs in the bell tower.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And what I really loved about the whole hand-holding part, I know it's a terrible reference, but it reminded me of the Enchantress transformation scene from Suicide Squad. And I like that.
Right.
That was a great visual, so that's what it reminded me of. I'm like, that's great. I like that. So I think, unless anyone has anything else to talk about,
I do.
Okay.
Just one thing we didn't really touch on was the whole priest character. Yeah, so I really like the dialogue, Eddie. And that's another thing with Eddie's beliefs. And so I really don't like that they seem to be making him doubt his religion. Like, yes, you could say he did have that in Carnage, but in this is just like, oh yeah, I don't believe in God anymore. It's just like, I mean,
he says he doesn't believe in God, but as the priest point out, yet you're still here in this church.
Yeah, so I'm hoping they do more of that, and because I really don't want Eddie's faith to be completely gone. And for the priest character himself, I really liked the dialogue that he was having with them, and even though the symbiote didn't like it. And so I kind of wish we had gotten more of him instead of just killing him for shock value. Like, yes,
but
it was.
hopefully he's not dead. Maybe he's still alive. Maybe.
I don't know. I do not think so.
And we
That's
never
why I
knew
was
his name.
confused.
That's all I have is hope, man. That's all I have.
That's why I was confused, because I thought it was Scorpion who was trying to track down Eddie, but then it turns out, okay, it had to have been the symbiote, because it could have been him, because I thought he was tracking him or whatever. So
Like it was a good, powerful moment with the, and it's going to make their relationship complicated now that but it's just the fact that I think he could have been a really good supporting character for Eddie, and that's what Eddie needs. Someone to talk to.
It was a wasted opportunity. It's like, and we didn't even know his name. We never knew his name.
Mr.
The
Priest.
R.I.P.
Yep.
But 150. But on Venom 150, why have Eddie Venom, who's this big character, he's finally back? Why have them kill an innocent priest? The big landmark issue. It just kind of irks me too.
Yeah.
Right, the very first issue he's back, he kills an innocent person, which is like the one thing he doesn't do. Right.
See, and that's one of those things that makes me worried that Costa just wants to go back to making Eddie and Venom a villain, and I don't want that.
Right. No, exactly. It was like a super powerful moment. I'd like to compare it to the very first issue of Venom Volume 3, where Venom crawling away from Lee. It's like a similarly powerful moment, except done right. In my opinion, at least.
And also, we get another on that last page with him holding the priest. We get another image of the whole hand holding with the symbiote. That it's like after killing these priests and the symbiote's holding your hand tenderly. Like, oh my god, that was just wrong.
Yeah, it was really drawn well. So.
All right, I think that's a good place to put a pin in the conversation. We have two more stories to get through. So, let's get on to the next one. So the next story in Venom number 150 is the one that a lot of Agent Venom fans have been waiting for. It's called Dependence Day by the creative team of Robbie Thompson, Gerardo Sandoval, and Dano Sanchez Almara. It's a short story that Agent Venom fans have been waiting for that explains why the symbiote was no longer with Flash prior to this series' first issue. So here's a short summary. Agent Venom and Mania are tearing up a bunch of lower demons as New York City's newest resident dynamic duo. Following the clash in an evening of pizza and banter, Mania swings home for the night, leaving Agent Venom with an unknown stalker who's been tracking him all day. After a brief spar with the armored attacker, the symbiote gets blasted with a huge sonic burst, sending it into a fitful rage. Flash tries to calm it down, but it takes off into the city. As Flash chases after his partner, it's revealed that FBI agent Wamba from the current Venom series was the man in the armor, and that the attack was part of a secret plan to separate the symbiote from Flash. We don't yet know what the plan was. Flash searches for weeks for the symbiote to no avail, as the symbiote wanders the city's alleys, suffering from fits of rage and finally bonding to the homeless guy we saw in the beginning of Venom #1. So John, you're the most outspoken Agent Venom fan of the group, and basically Aaron's Twitter counterpart / rival. What were your thoughts with Dependence Day?
Well, if you guys don't mind me going on a little tirade like Aaron did for 150, I'll give you kind of a summary of my thoughts. Overall, the feeling I get from this 8-page issue is that it was extremely weak. The reason that it left Flash Thompson makes absolutely no sense, except for the fact that he uses a plot gun to randomly make the symbiote angry. But then in issue #1 of Venom #6, he's looking for someone similar to Flash. He's looking for a hero. He might as well be looking for Flash, but he doesn't. He doesn't go back to Flash's home. He instead bonds to a homeless man. It really doesn't make too much sense. Those are my biggest gripes about it, and we'll all discuss about that soon. But I'm going to talk about the few things that I found that were really fantastic. First and foremost, Flash's and Andy's relationship and dialogue was adorable. It was perfect. I couldn't be happier with it. There's so much fan art of him telling her to do her homework, and now it's finally in an issue, which makes me absolutely happy. I'm always a big fan of Sandoval's art. I really like how he draws Agent Venom. I really like, this is a small moment, but I really like how Flash continues to use help groups to cope with things. He used a help group in space during Space Night, so it only makes sense that he would use one now. And I'm really excited that they have plans for him in the future. So those are my basic thoughts about it.
Excellent. Yeah, I think for all of us, the favorite part were those first couple of pages with Mania.
Yeah, absolutely, that first page is so great.
It's what we want. We want a. If you're listening to this, Devin, we know you're listening to this. You told us in the letter pages with my letter. If you're listening to this, we want a Mania and Flash Thompson solo series. Just Mania.
Our girl. Make it happen.
I'll take a mini series. I'll take a one shot. Just something.
Please make it happen. We want to see Mania more often, please.
Yes, please.
Right.
And so, the way that they separated Flash from the symbiote was a bit troubling. However, I have my own theories that I've been floating around on Twitter. If you've been following us, watching John and Carlos and Tyler and I just arguing back and forth about how this works and how it doesn't.
It's all theories. It's
all theories. That's the thing. Yeah, it's the best we can do until we get an actual explanation for anything.
If we get one at all.
If we get one at all.
If we get one at all, that's the problem.
Now, so what my theory is this goes back to Space Knight, Venom Space Knight, and the particular issue is with issue number 10. It was the issue when Venom was having his trial with the rest of the Clintar because of his re-corruption after being cleansed. He's having this whole issue and everything, and so he's having his trial, flashes in on it, so he gets to see everything that's going on, and it turns out the revelation is that the reason the cleansing wasn't complete was because of Mania back on Earth. She couldn't be cleansed because she has the hell mark still. And even in this issue with number 150, this story, Mania still has her hell mark, and she can't be fully cleansed, and therefore Venom can't be whole and fully cleansed. And so Venom is still suffering from its corruption when it temporarily bonded with that alien villain from space. And I forget his name. I think it's like
Mercurio or something.
Mercurio or something like yeah.
Mercurio.
Yeah, and so he's still suffering from that. He's also suffering from the memories of his very first host, which we got to kind of know a little bit about, where the first alien host he had made him kill the entire planet that the alien host had come from. So I think the symbiote is still suffering from its corruption, and we all know from, if you've ever read Venom Dark Seed, Seed of Darkness, which was the issue that was like a flashback for Eddie Brock when he was a reporter before being Venom. He encountered a symbiote called Crowbar, the Living Darkness. And Crowbar, when he came to Earth, the first time he came to Earth, it was explained that just humanity's collective psychic noise drove him insane. It drives symbiotes insane. That's why most of the symbiotes we see on Earth are evil, and only a few of them, like Hybrid and Toxin, are the exceptions, because they're a bit immune. They built up an immunity to the insanity, although they still are malleable to the to human psychic influence. But you have Venom coming back to Earth to help Mania out. Mania hasn't been helped out yet. She still has her hell mark, and so he's still struggling with that, along with this environment, this world of psychic madness for him. And so when he gets blasted by this plot gun, as you put it, we know that in the armor is Agent Wamba of the FBI, who has this plan, who knows about symbiotes. Of course, the U.S. government would know about symbiotes, about their weaknesses and everything. So he probably had a plan to separate the symbiote because the FBI wanted to know who Spider-Man was under the mask, and that was their whole plan with Lee Price, was to try to get him. Yeah.
Or it was Eddie who just wanted the symbiote all to himself.
Or
so
that
he sent this
exactly
dude to go separate them.
So
yeah.
they
He's
wanted
the
to
guy
separate
on the radio, probably, maybe.
That's-
Who knows?
that's
See,
a
and then
possibility.
weren't these the same guys who were like talking about, oh, who is Venom, like in the car?
Yeah. Yeah.
No, the only reason Wambog learns about Venom's weakness is that it bonds with him for a second, and he says, "Hold up, this thing's weak to fire. I can tell because it's in my head," or something like that, right? And apparently he already knew he was weak to fire because he uses it on Flash.
Yeah, so like 1 through 5 was a mistake, apparently.
So-
The whole issue is just, it should not have happened, it seems
I
like.
think it's like Robbie Thompson
Too many
skimmed it and said, "Hey, these FBI guys can be the reason," and that's it.
Yeah, so like getting back to my whole theory is that Wamba probably knew the exact frequency or whatever that would set the symbiote off, and since the symbiote is so weakened right now with its corruption and everything, it's prone to its rage and everything, that it kind of set the symbiote off in this fitful rage where it was just like blinded and it was animalistic, and it just went off because even Flash couldn't control the symbiote. It's like, it got into this cycle. Yeah, exactly, got into the cycle. It relapsed. And the way I think of it is that when the symbiote finally came to out of its blind rage, it was still suffering from rage, and it felt like, this is my theory, of course.
But hey, that's just a theory of Venom.
Just a theory.
Oh god.
My theory is that it felt it was no longer worthy for Flash. Flash, as I've been saying, he is a hero who no longer really needs Venom, because Venom is right now in a downward spiral with its corruption. Flash can be a hero on his own. He can get a new symbiote, whatever. But Venom is having problems, and it knows this, and it knows that it's no longer good for Flash, and he doesn't want to be a Flash, even though he wants someone like Flash. He wants someone to help him through his problems. He it doesn't have to necessarily be someone as good as Flash, but as someone who can help the symbiote get back on track with recovering from this fit of rage.
There's no one as good as Flash.
Yeah,
so.
no. Yeah.
And the other.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No, I was gonna say, like, the one thing that just never really clicked with me is the fact that when Venom separates from Flash, and then we go from Venom #1, and then he bonds with Lee, and then he's pretty much telling Lee to be this good guy. He tries to be a hero with him. And when he goes back with Brock, he's all corrupted, and he doesn't want anyone to take him away. And he says, like, if you get near Eddie, I'm going to kill you. That's where I got that assumption with a priest dying, because he.
Yeah.
And it's just like I don't know. That was just kind of like very confusing altogether.
Yeah, and then even in Venom 6, he's just like, no, Lee, no more killing. I want to be a hero with Spider-Man. Like.
And I have
what?
I have a theory for that one too.
It's the power of love, guys. You just gotta accept it. It's the power of love.
Yeah, like when it bonded with Lee, it was like, oh shoot, this is a mistake. This guy's terrible. I need anyone but Lee. It sees Eddie. Well, of course, Eddie comes to it after Spider-Man rejects
armor,
it.
like I said.
Yeah, Spider-Man rejects it.
To rescue it.
Yeah, Spider-Man rejects it at its weakest moment, and that probably pissed it off. Because it's having this fitful rage now. It's like, oh, you know what? Screw humanity. You're all screwing me over. And then it sees Eddie coming to the symbiote's rescue. Like, oh, my love. I've been waiting for this as well. I want to bond with you, Eddie. So it's like, okay, we're back together. We're gonna be Venom again. This is gonna be great. We're gonna be Lethal Protector. Yeah. Never leave me. Don't let anything come between me. I'll kill anyone who comes between us. And that's,
The thing is, I mean, Eddie himself admitted he wanted to be a hero.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
so it was giving it what he wanted, and then he still starts killing people. And I don't get that. And I have to go rewind a bit to the whole, like, plot gun and whatnot. My goodness, I did not like this at all. So this story had to serve a purpose. This story was obviously, they had to get the Flash from point A to point B, which was Eddie. From Flash to Eddie, and that's what the story had to accomplish, and I think it failed spectacularly. Like, this story, just like so as you were saying, like, yes, you could have the subtext of like the Venom thinking it's not good enough for Flash. It's like, sorry, Flash, I'm still corrupt. I don't want to put you through this, and so yes, that could be an interesting story, but this story does not do that. It's a late, like, Flash and the Symbiote have been through way worse than this in space. Like, when it's literally, like, trying to corrupt him and, like, throwing around, undoing all the good they've done. And, like, and then it still goes back to him eventually. And then they're back on Earth, and Spider-Man blasts off. It goes crazy Hulk out again. Starts fighting Spider-Man, bashing him around. Then it just calmly goes back to Flash. And so the fact that the Flash separation needed to be a big moment. And it needed to be this, like, if it had been something like, maybe it goes out of control again while Flash is wearing it, and it kills some innocent person. And Flash is like, oh my god, what have we done? What have you done, Venom? Like, and so Venom's like, I'm sorry, I can't be with you. I'm not good enough for you. And so, but it wasn't that. It was just like, boom, symbiote's off. Oh, come on back, Venom. What do you mean, Snyarg? Which is what he says. So,
I was expecting a lot more with this. Like, it was just, like, out of nowhere. Like, a split action, that's it, And
I think it could have benefited from, like, just the symbiote saying, when it's running off, it's like, oh, this is too much for me. I can't continue doing this with you, Flash, because I can't corrupt you like I am corrupted. Because remember, when this issue starts, it's like a few weeks after the end of Space Knight. And Mania is still not recovered from her hell mark, and that's probably weighing on the symbiote. That's probably weighing on its corruption, being around the hell mark, and how it corrupts Mania as well. So, yeah, the story would have been better, I think, if it included the symbiote, some reflection saying, I love you, Flash, but I'm no longer good for you. I need to find...
Or they could have just had Agent Wambog specifically say, oh, my plot gun was set to a specific frequency.
Yeah, because as it stands, it looks like a sonic gun. That's 100% what it looks like, and I don't see the reason that it would make Venom act like this.
Right, like he needed to say like, oh, it was at a specific frequency that made him go super crazy or something like that.
Yeah.
But nothing.
Nothing. This story was super rushed and quick, like even more rushed than the main story. And honestly, I think this would benefit a lot if, say, don't have like as cool as the Ron Lim issue was with Michelini.
Next one.
Like, yeah, we'll go get into that. But I feel like don't have that story. Put that in the next issue backup. Make the issue cost a little more and double this story because this was not enough. Like it's so quick and it's unsatisfying in every way. This should not be how Age of Venom ends. This is so disappointing in every single way.
This is the milestone issue, and this is what we got. It's like, I don't understand how they kind of improved that. They should have took more time to actually put more details. It
should have been a big moment, like
right.
And instead, like, hey, here, Age of Venom fans, this is Venom 150. Here's a really unsatisfying thing for Age of Venom. There you go. This is done. It's like what? Like this is like my favorite character, and you're just like throwing him to the side, like.
But he will be back in Amazing Spider-Man. He'll be back in Venom doing something. Who knows? But I mean, we've heard he'll return in some fashion in the story at least.
Yeah.
Right.
Just have hope.
They have said
he'll be back at least.
If it weren't for Nick Lowe on Twitter and Devin in the letters specifically mentioning that they have big plans for him and that
Flash,
you'll see him in future Spidey books, I would be a mess right now. Like that's the only thing I'm holding on to. Like they have plans for him. Don't worry, this issue sucks, but they have plans for him.
Now, what I will say is that even though regardless of all that, personally for me, the only thing that's this part is like. I was saying to myself, please don't have Annie lose the symbiote too. Please don't let that happen.
Yes,
Please.
And then the fact that she's in New York with Flash, and so he didn't just abandon her again. So she's with him. Like you see them searching for Venom together. Like I'm very glad Andy is still with him. So I'm very thankful for that.
Family is adorable.
Oh, so good.
Because I would have lived it as hell if she would have lost the symbiote too.
Restraint.
Yeah.
All right, I think that's a good place to put a pin on that conversation. So, finally, we get to what I'll call the candy story of Venom number 150, because it is just oh so sweet, and it's a palate cleanser, if anything. And it's called Mauled, by Venom co-creator David Michelini, and by a great artist from the past, still great today, Ron Lim, and with some art by John Livesey and Lee Luridge. I think that's how you say his name. I'm sorry if I said it wrong. This is a flashback story to Venom's Lethal Protector days. It's just a brand new little tidbit of a story untold, basically. So here's the gist of it. Eddie hangs out in a mall in anticipation of a gang of serial robbers as a trap for Spider-Man. When things go sideways and a robber threatens to kill a mall cop, Venom steps in and dispenses his brand of lethal justice. Once the robbers are handled, the mall cop shoots at Venom and uses the woman as a human shield against him. Venom figures the mall cop isn't innocent, kills him, and walks off into the sunset. That's pretty much it. So what were your thoughts on Mauled, Tyler?
So, I don't have a whole lot to say about the story. I enjoyed it. It's exactly what it set out to be, an untold story of his, Lethal Protector days. And that's absolutely what it was, in every sense. Like, even the coloring on it is, like, it fits Ron Lim's art so well to really give a look back at, like, what a comic from that period would be like. That's exactly what it looks like. And I think that's kind of a cool aspect to it. Like, you have Venom looking mostly blue. And, like, that's a classic, like, 90s thing. And so it really worked for it. And the story itself, it's a simple story of, Lethal Protector justice. Like, it's Eddie just talking about himself, monologuing, and then, pulling off the heads off the Spider-Man, like, curse you, Spider-Man. And then and then dealing out his justice to the criminals. And you have classic Venom thing. You have turning invisible. You have squeezing the head. Absorbing bullets, and it's fun. I liked it. It's overall it is kind of average because it really doesn't have any forward momentum or anything. But it wasn't trying to do that. It was just like, let's take a the flashback. That's absolutely what it is. It's a trip back. And I did kind of find it weird that just like the one cop that pulls the woman, he's like, don't hurt me, hurt her instead. That's really weird. Like, I mean, I guess this is the Marvel Universe, and the civilians there are kind of stupid anyway. But
Very stupid.
but it's just the fact that Venom's like, hey, are you damaged? Do you require assistance? Obviously, this guy's scared out of his mind. He's like, stay back, and then it's like, hurt this woman instead of like trying to run away or something. Like, what? And then, so it's just like almost like comically stupid. Like,
He's scared, man. All those teeth freak him out, man. That long tongue, it's scary.
Yeah, but I really did like the panel where it's just like, she's like, monster. He's like, correct. He's like,
Yeah.
he won't harm you anymore. Like that one panel, just like, don't worry.
That was a great one.
He points his finger in the air. He's like, yeah, correct, madam. But you're safe now.
Yeah. Yeah, I really did love how they brought back some of his classic power sets, the invisibility, the suffocating symbiote, where he just extends his symbiote to the victim's head and just suffocates them by pulling out all the air. That's some great classic stuff.
The only thing I wish they did for this issue, they should have bring back the mullet. They should.
That was my joke.
Yes.
You stole it.
We should have had the mullet.
Keep the mullet gone. Yeah. I cannot stand that mullet. It is a product of its time, and it should stay there. And I do not like that mullet.
Hey, Ron Lim made that mullet great. Venom Lethal Protector, he made it great, and it's a flashback issue. You need to have the mullet. It was just weird seeing his art without it. It was just weird. I have to say that. It was weird seeing it without it.
Ron Lim and Mark Bagley, I think. Wasn't it? Mark Bagley? Yeah.
Yeah.
Flat top every day.
3 issues, I think, and then Ron did the last 3.
Yes,
I think.
yes.
Yeah, with the Life Foundation stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, so...
But it had all the main points. It had Spidey hatred, protecting innocence, camouflage, smothering a guy, a scared woman, and of course, at the very end, we are Venom.
Yep.
It hit all those good Lethal Protector 90s moments.
So,
right, yeah. I loved it throughout as well. The art was fantastic. I've saved so many images from it already. It's fantastic. But I did want to point out one thing. One of our fellow maniacs, Venomaniacs, mentioned how it is really a product of its time. It's just really dumb fun, and you could tell like Eddie doesn't learn anything from his past adventures, right? Like back in the 90s, like he doesn't feel anything for killing anyone and that kind of thing. And it really contrasts the story of 150, the main story, and so hopefully
it shows how they changed over time. Like that's what the whole start of it said. Like I think at the start it said like this is how he was like before all the changes. Right,
exactly. Yeah, exactly. It was fantastic. I loved it throughout, and it's a good contrast to this is Eddie now, and this was Eddie back then. You know, he was kind of goofy.
Yep. If anything,
that's why we loved him.
This story brought us all together. You know, we might have our differences when it comes to the previous 2 stories, but this one really tied us all together. It's like we're one good family. You know, this is great.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it really didn't do much for his character development. It's like, yes, this is Eddie, but it had a mission. It's like, let's do a classic Eddie story, and that's what it did. So it set out in its mission and accomplished it.
Yep, it's all nostalgia.
Right.
And it's great.
Real quick, the Venom Maniac I'm quoting is Wolf Cipher. Just give him a quick shout out because he
Wolf
has
Cipher. Okay, so now that we have everybody's thoughts on these 3 stories, let's just give each of us a brief little review, say overall, what did we think about Venom number 150? Let's start with Tyler.
So, I mean, I had mixed feelings going into this, and I have mixed feelings coming out of it. And overall, I don't want to say it, but they are overall negative. And I mean, I like some of the stuff they're setting up, but it's just, I'm left with too many questions, and it's just like a lot of speculation. and it just doesn't line up with what I've read before. And I didn't enjoy that, and I thought Fox would have a bigger moment. And so, but I mean, the last story was still good. So I mean, I don't know. Overall, I would say this was. That'd be my grade. Meh.
Meh.
You know.
All right. And how about you, Aaron?
Well, I'd say the art was the main strong point of the whole issue. All three artists and all the inkers did an excellent job. Me being an Eddie fan, I would say if you're also a hardcore Eddie Brock fan like me, I would say buy it. You know, it has him finally back as Venom, shows him how he's grown. It explains to the Agent Venom fans what happened, and at the end, it has a nice little story for all fans of all ages. So I would say it was all right for the most part, but if you're a hardcore Eddie Brock fan, I would buy it.
All right. And how about you, Carlos? What's your review?
I like part 1 and part 3, but as for part 2, I didn't really. It really confused me. But again, for all 3 parts for the art style, I loved it a lot. You know, especially Moore's art on Venom. I hope he continues as the artist for Venom. That's just my preference for the time being. But if I had to say, I would give Venom 150 a 3 out of 5. So yeah.
Alrighty. And how about you, John?
Yeah, I enjoyed the issue. The Lethal Protector story specifically was a nice, it was like the lollipop after the doctor's visit, right? There's a lot that I like about the first story, but there's a lot that I didn't like, specifically ignoring continuity. And the Flash story, if it weren't for Mania and Andy coming to New York with Flash, there'd be really nothing good about it at all. So I give it a hard meh and a hard 2 out of 5, and I hope it gets better from.
All right, and as for myself, I've said it on Twitter, I'll say it again. This is the first Venom book that I came away happy with ever since Cullen Bunn's run on Agent Venom's first series. Even with I liked the second half of Space Knight, but not quite as much as I liked this single issue. Yeah, it has its issues. It has its problems, like the "we love, my love" and all that type of stuff. But I liked it overall. I liked the art. I liked the stories. I have enough of a crazy mind to fill in the blanks, as you've already heard, with any plot holes or anything. So upon rereading it, I've reread this thing 3 times already, and each time it's gotten better for me as I just inserted my own little canon here and there. But yep, I really like this. I'll upgrade the meh to a pretty good. So yeah, that's pretty much our reviews. I think that's about time to wrap things up for the first of our 2-part extravaganza. Tune in to our next episode coming soon, in which we will discuss The Land Before Crime and Edge of Venomverse.
Boy.
Dinosaurs, baby, Moon Girl, Inhumans. Buy it now.
All right, well, thank you, Carlos, John, Tyler, and Aaron for joining me tonight. And thanks to the Venom site for permitting us to make this podcast under the TVS banner, and all of your generous support. And finally, thank you, loyal listeners and fellow Venomaniacs. You guys make an awesome community, and it's an honor to be your voice on the airwaves. Together, we are Venomaniacs.